Let's tank Aggramar in Antorus on Mythic difficulty. Now this fight is a 3-tank fight. You pretty much want to bring 2 blood DKs and then 1 other tank. If you haven't got 2 blood DKs or 3 tanks available to you, just get one of your DPS DKs just to spec blood, as all they're really going to be doing is handling the adds. Now, just like the heroic counterpart, this is a 5-phase fight with 2 intermission phases, which are probably the most difficult to get around, and probably the last phase is pretty crazy as well because of all the extra adds spawning, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. This is probably one of the harder fights in here, if not the hardest, in my opinion especially. I feel that this fight's easily the hardest fight in here. I think Argus is pretty easy once you know what's actually going on, whereas this one, any slight error, or you get too relaxed, or you just lose focus for a split second, can pretty much mean a full raid wipe. So let's get straight stuck into it and have a look at phase 1. So phase 1 is pretty simple. Everything pretty much remains the same as on heroic, apart from the combo. The goal of phase 1 is pretty much just to pump a load of damage into the boss and set up for the intermission phase. Now, like on heroic, you still want to be targeting at 8 stacks on the tank debuff, Tal Shellax Reach, which pretty much does the same as it does on heroic. It's just a stacking debuff and it increases physical damage taken by the main target. Now what we did is we'd have me tank it until the first combo, and then for every other combo it would be me tank it, the DK take the middle set of stacks, and then I'd tank it to get the first set of abilities for the combo again. We do this for every set. This was just to make sure that we was doing pretty much the same thing for every combo, which I'll get into in a second. The boss will also be casting Wake of Flame, which he doesn't target onto the 2 main tanks. However, make sure you're not getting hit by any Wake of Flame throughout the fight. I'm not really going to talk about this mechanic. I might mention it maybe in the intermission phase, but just watch out for the Wake of Flames like you do on heroic in the last phase throughout the whole fight. And get good at dodging, as having the debuff from Wake of Flame as well as tanking the boss, there is a lot of damage going out and the healers will be stressed due to the debuffs from the adds. So just make sure you're avoiding as much avoidable damage as possible throughout the rest of the fight. So the biggest change for us as tanks is actually the Tashalat technique, and that's because it comes out in a pretty random order. Now by random, there is set orders that it does come out. It isn't just like gonna start doing absolute like crazy different patterns, but it is pretty random on what you'll actually get through the fight. And I'm going to give you 4 examples of what the different combos can be. There may be another one, but these are the 4 that I mainly saw while progressing this fight. Before I go over the different combos though, let's just have a look at the individual parts of the technique. Now, Full Breaker pretty much is the same, it just hits a bit harder. It does 43 million physical damage, so obviously you're going to want a big cooldown for everyone. That's pretty simple. Now, the Flame Rend's a little bit different. It's now empowered and it's going to inflict 47.5 million fire damage in a frontal cone divided evenly among all players struck, and it also increases damage taken by Flame Rend by 500% for 30 seconds. It's still going to knock back as well, and the knockback's reduced by the amount of players that actually soak it, and if not enough players soak it, the boss is going to get Burning Rage stack, which increases all the damage the boss does by 50%, so obviously you don't want to be getting this, as it's very bad. So how you want to handle this is you're going to split the raid into 2 groups. Now, obviously, depending on what tank's got the boss is whatever group they're going to be in, so don't worry about the 2 main tanks. They just soak whichever one they're currently tanking, and they don't soak the next one. That's pretty simple. Now, group 1, all we did is we had 10 players soak it, so it'd be the tank currently doing it, and if you've got, like, say, 9 melee, you'd put 9 melee in it. If you haven't, you'd put, like, the melee in it and a few healers, so maybe a Holy Paladin, because they should be in melee anyway. And the other group would be all the range players and the rest of the healers, as well as the 3rd tank. And that's just because range tend to take more damage than melee players. You want the melee to always go first because they're already hitting the boss and they're in melee range already to run in and soak, so your range players don't need to go in. And then they just go behind the boss when the next one happens, and the range just run in, so they've got a lot of time to get into position for the second one. Obviously, like on heroic, you just want to face this mechanic straight into the center of the raid and pretty much face it always the same direction so everyone knows where it's going, so range and healers aren't out of position and accidentally get clipped. Because if they're not soaking the second one, then players are going to start dying. You need to make sure everyone's soaking it every time and not messing this up, as you're going to start losing players to the damage it actually deals. And the final part of the techniques, like on heroic, is the Searing Tempest, which is the big orange circle that it puts around him. You need to run out of this and not get hit by it. As well as this, you don't want any adds to be in it, as it empowers the adds, breaks all the CCs, and makes them start sprinting towards the boss. So later on when you've got ads in it and you're pushing them back and stuff, just make sure you're knocking them out of this. And if not, you've got a priest master spelling the enrage off them, as they can't be CC'd or anything when they like this. So just make sure you're knocking them out of it. And if they do get enraged, just mass dispel them, and that solves that problem. Now for us as tanks, when this ability comes out, you want to be trying to go to the side rather than towards the middle. This will off-center the boss as he'll come towards you when he starts casting his flame rend ability. However, it stops the boss running towards the middle because you're already out there, especially if you ain't got a tank that can say heroic leap back in or charge in. So like a druid, using skull bash can sometimes be problematic, as sometimes like the range on it's a bit dodgy and sometimes you won't charge back in straight away, or there's a bit of delay that'll cause the boss to go to the center. And if you've got a load of ads running in at the time, you'll hit the ads, blow the raid up, and that's GG. So just run the boss to the sides, and then he's going to go to the sides instead of running straight to the middle. Obviously, you need to make sure you turn him to face the centre, and the raid need to be aware of this, so just call it. But they can pretty much tell the boss is moving at a weird angle anyway, because he's a massive boss. So just be aware of that, and that's a little tip for the fight, as we probably wiped quite a few times just to the boss being slow on the taunts coming back out and stuff like that. As you'll see in the video, what happens. Even on our kill, one of the times the boss goes into the centre because of this, and nearly wipes us because the ads are pretty close to him. Now, apart from that, the technique, you just need to be quick on your taunts and get used to the different combos, which we're going to look at now. So while progressing on this, I only really saw 4 combos. I'm pretty sure there's no others, but they could be, so just be wary that there might be other combos. And when I'm reading them off, tank means that it's going to be a full breaker. When I say group 1 or group 2, that's going to be a flame rend, and run out is going to be the Searing Tempest ability. I'm going to read them off a piece of paper because I took notes down. I'll also write them on the video for this part, and then you can do with whatever you want with that information that I give you. It's totally up to you. You can also get weak auras to help you with this, but it's just better to know what's actually coming and just to memorize the different combos yourself rather than using some kind of add-on, even though the add-ons will probably help you out while progressing, but I just prefer to learn it personally. So the combos are, the first one's going to be tank, group 1, run out, tank, then group 2. The second combo you can get is tank, run out, group 1, tank, then group 2. The third is group 1, run out, tank, tank, group 2. And the fourth is group 1, tank, tank, run out, group 2. Now, as you'll notice from this, group 2 pretty much is at the end of every one. So you're never going to get something like tank, tank, group 1, group 2. It's always going to be like tank, group 1. And then something will happen, then tank group 2. You'll never get back-to-back flame rends ever, so don't worry about having to deal with that because you don't need to. And that's pretty much it for the combos. I hope that helped you a little bit. Now, this is where the fun starts, is the intermission phases. Now, you're going to probably wipe a lot of times to this, so let's get straight into it. So the only difference between intermission phase 1 and intermission phase 2 is that in number 2, you're also going to be getting the little wake of flames, and you just need to make sure you're dodging them, as well as dodging the little swirls on the ground and the big swirls. Obviously, they punt you off the platform or punt you in whatever direction that you're standing on of it, so don't get hit by anything, basically, as you could get put into the big ad, enrage them both, stuff like that. Lots of bad things go wrong if you get hit by any of the avoidable stuff, so just don't and get used to not doing it. Now, the little embers of Taishlat have changed a lot from heroic to mythic difficulty. CCs now only last 8 seconds on them, and they also have energy bars, and when they're at 100% energy, they're going to blow up and leave that nasty debuff on you. So make sure your DK, your third tank, is controlling this and marking or gripping whatever hand needs to be gripped in, whichever is the highest energy, and doing it pretty much as soon as it's required of him. So as soon as the debuff drops, you're pulling in another one. So the general strat for this is we're going to be doing a 2-stack at the start of the intermission phase, 1 after the 2 ads are dead, and then we're just going to be single gripping the high energy ads into the boss and not getting any more 2-stacks, as that'll probably strain the healers too much and you don't really want to be dealing with this. So as we only have so many grips available to us, what we do is we pull the 2 big ads on top of 2 embers, pretty much in the position where the boss was being tanked in phase 1. We enrage these 2 embers to about 3/4 of the way towards the boss, then we get the big ads away. The best way to do this is just to tank the 2 big ads about halfway in between where the embers come from and where the boss is in the centre of the room. This will enrage them all the way up to just before the boss, then you pull the ads just to the corner of the room, or edge of the circle I should even say. And this will just run the ads all the way up to the boss and pretty much get a 2-stack within maybe 5-10 seconds of the intermission phase starting. At this point, your healers are going to be popping cooldowns and rotating cooldowns to deal with the big adds damage, as well as the double stack that you're going to be getting. You can use a minor cooldown here if you need to, just to help with the damage on yourself because you're tanking the big adds, as well as taking the double stack of the debuff, but you shouldn't really have to. Your health should be just more than enough, and the healing cooldown should be helping you just like negate the damage that's actually on you at this point. Now, apart from that, you just want to be putting as much damage into the two big adds as possible and killing them off as quick as possible, because you only really get 8 seconds of CC on the rest of the adds that are going to be going towards the boss. Now, the rest of the adds want to be CC'd straight away on the pull for the whole 8 seconds. They also then want to be slowed, and these adds are going to slowly start going towards the boss after the main CC's broke. And the goal is basically to have the two big adds dead just before these adds are starting to hit the boss. And as the boss leaves intermission phase, the third DK is going to mass grip them all behind the boss, and you're going to pull the boss away from these adds. Obviously, you don't want to pull them on top, as you'll get stacked and you'll all die. So once the boss is in position again, like he was in phase 1, all these adds should be gripped on the opposite side of the room, and then you want to rotate pushbacks and slows and stuff on the adds just to keep them away. Also, at the end of the intermission phase, you should be losing your 2-stack debuff, and you're going to want to do another 2-stack debuff. Now, you can do this by many different ways. You can have the tank DK, just single grip one, and then another DK single grip one in again. Or you can have your other tank just mass grip the 2 adds on top of the boss. It's up to you how you do this. Just make sure you get a second 2-stack. After you've done this, the rest of the fight is pretty much knocking back the adds, slowing them. You can use druid knockbacks, you've got mages, you've got slows. You just need to make sure you've got like 4 to 5 in the raid, and you're just going to keep pushing the adds back, and you just want the third tank just to be coordinating this with the players who are actually doing it. And then keeping an eye on the energy bars and making sure he's gripping the highest energy add into the boss first, and whittling them down that way. So highest energy is priority, pulling it in as soon as the debuff runs out, and then just dealing with it that way. And for the first set of adds, that's all you really need to worry about. And that pretty much leads us into phase 2. Now, stage 2 is pretty simple because we've already been practicing the technique ability. The only real thing you need to worry about is pretty much the third tank needs to make sure the adds are pretty much being controlled and not blowing up 2 stacks with the energy, which we've already spoke about. And that range players are at the side of the room and not on top of any of these adds, as if the adds get hit by flare, they become enraged and start running towards the boss. So that's something you should be aware of as a raid as well. Now, apart from that, once you handle all these adds and they're dead, you want to be pushing the boss into the second intermission phase, which once again is just like the first one, apart from you've got the Wake of Flames to deal with, which you just need to dodge. Everything else is handled the same. The grips are handled the same. You still want to be going for a 2-2 stack, one at the beginning of the phase and one at the end of the phase. I highly recommend using your second pot at this point just to get the big adds down and giving the range a little bit of time to be baiting out the empowered flare, which happens in the last phase. So in the last phase, what empowered flare does is it'll summon little adds. So you've also got to control these adds, and they're also empowered once they spawn, so they need mass dispelling. Now, how we handled it is we had all the range stacked together and bait all the flares in one spot, so we knew where the adds were coming from, and a mass dispel went on him straight away just to get rid of it. After this happened, we had the second, or I should say first blood DK, the one who's tanking with me. He'd run out and mass grip all the adds together just so we could control them that way, as the first blood DK already had his mass grip on cooldown because he used it at the end of the phase like we did in the intermission phase 1. He's going to use it in mission phase 2, so he hasn't got a mass grip to grip these extra 3 to 4 adds from the empowered flare. So we just use the other tank just to run out, grip them together, and that solved that problem. Now at this time you're going to be solo tanking the boss because you haven't got a tank with you. So you just need to get like an external, or if you've got a spare cooldown, just pop a cooldown because you'll be taking a little bit of extra damage, but it's nothing really to worry about. As well as this, you want to be roaring to help the range bait these flares out at the end of the mission phase, just to get them in position, make sure everyone gets there in a good time. And apart from that, everything's the same, apart from you've got to deal with a little wake of flames that come from everything pretty much. So you're dodging, you're dealing with the adds. And at certain points or certain times, if something does happen with the knockbacks or the adds are a little bit loose because the grips weren't right, you can always kite the boss away just to give your third tank, Blood DK, and the pushbacks a little bit of extra time just to get the adds grouped up. Last phase, you want a Bloodlust just to get out of this phase as quick as possible, as it gets really out of control really fast. Any slight mistake on the knockbacks pretty much is going to wipe you, and you just need to be aware of when the boss needs kiting away. Now, apart from that, the only other thing in the last phase you need to be wary of is the empowered foe breaker on the Taishlat technique. And all this does, it's still going to hit for the same amount of damage, 43 million. However, it's now going to root the tank that it hits. So this just needs to be instantly dispelled by one of the healers so the tank can carry on doing his technique stuff. If it's a bit slow and the tank doesn't turn the boss quick enough, it can get punted off or it'll just pretty much wipe the raid. So the healers just need to be on the ball and you just need to be calling out what tank's going to be needing dispelled, and it needs dispelling straight away. And when it's dispelled, it does do 3.5 million fire damage to everyone within 20 yards. So you just need to be aware of this happening. Now, apart from that, that's pretty much the last phase. It doesn't last very long. You'll probably end up doing maybe 2, maybe 3 techniques and a little bit of kiting if stuff goes wrong with the ads. As long as the third DK who's controlling the ads can manage to control them and call out what he needs to happen so the pushbacks correctly, everything should be fine and you should get this boss down pretty quickly. As I said at the start of the video, any little mistake will end up in a wipe, so you pretty much need to do this fight perfectly and always be on the ball of what's coming up. And that's pretty much the end of this guide. Thanks for watching my video. If you have any questions, please comment in the section down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll also be putting out an update video of what's coming on the channel in the next few days. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on my next video.